In this, we're going to take a look at moral development. And when we talk about moral development, we're talking about a person's sense of what's right and wrong. Okay, what's okay to do, what's not okay to do. And how does that develop? How do we get a sense of morality? Are we born with it, or does it develop over time? Do we have to be taught that, what's right and wrong through reinforcement, or exactly how does it develop? And that's where we're going to take a look at a couple theories related to morality come into play. Lawrence Kohlberg, this guy right here, basically Lawrence Kohlberg was one of the first guys to really come up with a theory of moral development. And he basically had 6 stages within his theory. The stages were not necessarily age related, but basically said that, for example, the higher the number you got to, the higher the stage of morality. So, for example, a stage 4 level of morality was higher than a stage 3. And Kohlberg, like I said, he didn't attach them to certain ages, but he basically said that a person would change or evolve into a new level of morality based on their discussions and their interactions with someone at a higher level. So, for example, somebody at a stage 3 level of moral development, if they were trying to like interact and maybe argue something out with somebody who's in a stage 4, the stage 4 person is going to present issues to the stage 3 individual that they've never really thought about before. And so Kohlberg believed that at some point that stage 3 individual would recognize the value and the importance of what the stage 4 person was saying, and they would kind of evolve into a higher stage. Now, we talk about these stages. These stages are very difficult. Like if you had to try and figure out exactly what stage a person's in, it was very difficult to do, and even Kohlberg admitted that. So what they kind of broke it down into was that they kind of talked about it being 3 levels of moral development, with stages 1 and 2 being the first level, stages 3 and 4 being the second level, and stages 5 and 6 being the third level. Now, one thing to note is that when Kohlberg did his testing years ago, he used what we call moral dilemmas. And a dilemma essentially is it's like a moral issue, a moral problem. It's a situation that he would present to people. And he'd say, okay, what if you were in this situation? And he'd give them some parameters to the point where there was no particularly perfect answer. I mean, it's not like there was an obvious right or wrong. You could actually go in different directions. And what he would look at would be the reason behind the person's behavior. So essentially, it's like he didn't care what you said you would do. You could act in any way that you wanted to, but it was the reason behind your action that was important to Kohlberg, and that's what he would actually base your level of morality at, was the reason behind the behavior. Okay, now a lot of people have issues with that because, again, a lot of people say, hey, your actions are more important than your thoughts. But he looked at the reasoning. Now, let's take a look at his theory. Okay, first of all, the pre-conventional level. Again, this would be Kohlberg's stages 1 and 2. And the pre-conventional, that's the lowest level of moral reasoning. Stage 1, basically, Kohlberg said, was based on obeying rules and avoiding punishment. And if you think about little bitty kids, little bitty, 2-year-olds, that's what they do. Is, to them, if they do something, as long as they don't get punished, then it must be okay. So when they start to learn that, oh goodness, I could do this and get punished for it, well, then that must be bad. So their entire universe depended on whether or not they got punished or not. Now, Kohlberg says eventually kids grow into what he calls stage two, and stage two is more about satisfying your own needs. So, for example, I'll do this for you because I think you're going to return the favor by doing such and such for me. So it was one of those deals where, the most important thing to me was what am I going to get out of this? So those two stages are the lowest levels of morality according to Kohlberg, and we call those the pre-conventional level. Now the conventional level, okay, this would be what he would call stages 3 and 4. Essentially, stage 3 was based on winning somebody's approval. In other words, I'm going to do something because I think it's going to please you. Or I think, I'm going to do this because I don't want you to disapprove of me if I do something else. So basically, winning somebody's approval was the third stage. The fourth stage consisted more about law and order. Okay, respect for authority, conforming to the laws of society. So, in other words, if the community says this is right or this is wrong, well, then we have to go along with it. Okay, those are stages 3 and 4, or what Kohlberg calls the conventional level of morality. Now, the post conventional level of morality. Let's talk about that. Basically, stages 5 and 6. Believe it or not, Kohlberg says very few people ever get here. He didn't believe that very many people ever got to this level. Most people, he believes, stayed at the conventional level of morality. Stage 5 and 6, which is in the post-conventional. Stage 5 is based pretty much on the welfare of the community. The behavior is based on kind of a balance between human rights and the laws of society. So it's very much based on maintaining social order. Okay. Stage 6 is a little bit higher and kind of with the idea that sometimes people will have kind of their own universal ethics that they go by. So decisions are based more on an individual's own principles of justice, which might, in certain cases, supersede any of society's laws. And again, he says most people never get here. This would be the case of, for example, he believed that like Martin Luther King Jr. had his own universal set of ethics that even though society believed that people ought to be treated one way, he believed at a much higher level that people should be treated equally, and that if they were going to protest or if they were going to do something to bring attention to the discrimination that was going on, well, then he believed in doing it in a non-threatening or a non-harmful way. So that would be an example of a stage 6. Now, as we said, this is just one theory that Kohlberg came up with years ago. A lot of people have criticized it over the years because basically, again, he based it on the idea that it was your reasoning, not your behavior. Also, the fact that, unless you're actually in a certain situation, you never know for sure what you do. But he would present things to people and say, okay, what if you're in this situation? So, not the greatest theory in the world according to a lot of people. Now, Carol Gilligan, she's one of the critics of Kohlberg, and it's kind of interesting because she actually worked with him on his research. But yet at the end, she disagreed with him on the theory. And she pointed out that Kohlberg only tested boys. Back at that time period, that was kind of a typical thing. Research was done on men and or boys, and what was true of men or boys was assumed to be true of females. Well, Carol Gilligan said that's not true. And she believes that boys and girls, just the gender differences between the two, they have a difference in the way that they look at morality. For example, she believes that boys are more law oriented. In other words, hey, this is the rule, they broke the rule, that's wrong. Whereas girls look more at the situation and take a lot of other considerations into or a lot of other situational factors into consideration. Now, that's all we're going to take a look at as far as Carol Gilligan, but I will tell you on Moodle, if you check out, there is a good, very short video on Carol Gilligan and her moral development theory. It's really good. It's only about 3 or 4 minutes. Well worth your time looking at to understand her theory a little bit better. Also, there is a really good video on there. I think it's called Born Good with a question mark. And that is one, it was a 60 Minutes episode not too long ago where they've actually started studying morality in infants. And they believe that infants, as young as 3 months of age, actually have a sense of what's right and wrong. Now, I'm not going to tell you how, but you ought to take a look at the video. It's very, very worthwhile. Definitely worth your time.